Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here with another falconry video. Today's video we're going to be talking about and comparing goshawks to Cooper's hawks. Goshawks and Cooper's hawks both are two of the most dynamic and athletically capable and performance-driven species of raptors on the planet. They're incredible. They seem unstoppable. They have some differences, they have some similarities, they're closely related, and I'll get into that in a second. But before I do, if you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe to my channel, I really appreciate it. It helps me keep this channel up and going. And again, I never do mid-roll ads, so I hope you appreciate that, not having to deal with stupid ads right in the middle of this, so we can just jump in and get right to it. So, goshawks and Cooper's hawks. Both of them, okay, I've got to back up a little bit here. We are right in the middle of a lot of taxonomic reclassifications. And let's be honest about taxonomy. Life is fluid. Animals adapt and change over time and become new animals. You have new subspecies, you get hybrids, you get all kinds of different things. Things branch off, you'll have isolated groups that then come back together. Life is very fluid. We do not like that. We like definitions. And so we have made up taxonomy, Linnaean taxonomy, as a way to classify animals so we could talk about them. And we use Latin, which is a dead language, so you're not favoring anybody. And that way, anybody around the world, falco peregrinus. If I say peregrine falcon, maybe in your country you might say, no, it's a red-naped Shaheen, and I say peregrine falcon. But I say falco peregrinus, you say falco peregrinus. Hey, we're talking about the same animal. So that is the value of taxonomic classification. It's very helpful, it's very useful, but it's human. It's a human construct. It's like putting a net over things. It's like putting a grid on a map. If you think about just how we map out the entire planet, it's organized in a grid, and we say what's in between these. Well, that grid isn't real, but it helps us talk about things. So I bring that up because goshawks and Cooper's hawks, well, it used to be that the northern goshawk was just considered a species. It's the northern goshawk. And there were northern goshawks in the United States and Canada, and there were northern goshawks in Europe. And some of them were morphologically unique. The eastern Siberian goshawks were kind of white. I'm going to get into those in a second. And there's some in America. So there's some that were white. There's some that are huge. The Finnish northern goshawk is enormous. Like huge. The proper ones. The ones we get in America captive bred, a Finnish goshawk, it's not that big, but the ones from Finland, if you're in Finland, are enormous. So you get some range in size and color. I think it's the Spanish ones that even as an adult, they're kind of brown, but still we're always viewed as these are different subspecies within the same species. Different color morphs, different regional sizes, but it's all the same species. Well, now they have been reclassified, and so now the species we have in America is, I believe, currently being called the American goshawk or the North American goshawk, and the other goshawk is considered a European goshawk or a Eurasian goshawk. And that's probably being cut up even more and more. And they're even like ripping apart what the taxon accipiter is. It's kind of frustrating, but again, it's just trying to get more and more detailed in how we understand things. But I'm just saying a goshawk is a goshawk. So for this video, I will differentiate some between northern goshawks of North America and of Europe. But when I say goshawk, I'm basically covering both of those unless I specify otherwise. So goshawks are the largest of what was, up until recently, now they're dividing it up and back and forth, the largest of the accipiters. So all accipiters, all of that taxon are built for forests. They can adapt to be out in the open, they can hunt in the open, but they're built for forests. So all of these have very long tails, and a long tail gives you a lot of maneuverability. They all have comparatively short rounded wings. So like if you look at a falcon, when a falcon is all folded up, the wing tips are going to come down basically to the end of the tail, where on these goshawks and other accipiters, you're going to have those wing tips are super short. So what that does, they're also very broad, very deep this way. So short, broad wings means you have to flap a lot. You can't glide and soar like, but it allows you to go through dense cover without running into things. You can just dive and go through branches and pull in and then come back out and flap really fast. So it's a benefit to birds that live in forested environments, excuse me, and dense environments. And we see this with all true accipiters. Some of them have longer tails than others, but a goshawk is no exception. And a Cooper's hawk is the same way. Now, before I jump into these about their differences, goshawks normally, they almost all accipiters look basically the same the first year of life. They're these beautiful muted tans and creams, and the melanin distribution on the chest streaks might be wider or skinnier. I think I have some photos or video clips showing a particularly pale one and also a particularly thick, chested Cooper's hawk. But again, it's a Cooper's hawk, it's a goshawk, a sharp-shinned hawk. Most of these birds, they look the same their first year. But as an adult, once they've molted into their adult colors, a goshawk is going to turn new colors. So goshawks are going to turn slate. They're kind of a bluish gray on the back, and the tail is banded, and they'll have eyes that are blood red and turn redder with age. The New World goss turns red. The Old World goss turns an orangish red. But again, with both species, the older they get, the redder the eyes get. This is the same thing with the eyes of Cooper's hawk. Cooper's hawks have pale eyes their first year, and then once they become adult, they get red eyes. They get redder with age. We don't know why that is, but because they keep getting redder and redder, it has been suggested that for both of these birds, it is an age and experience indicator in a mate selection. So the idea is, well, hey, it's kind of like a silverback gorilla. A gorilla with silver hair, it's been around long enough. It knows how to protect and defend its little simian troop. Same idea. If you are a female trying to select a male and it has very red eyes, it's a good hunter because it's lived many, many years, as opposed to a pale red-eyed goshawk or Cooper's hawk. That's a male that has, it's only been around 1 year. It's still learning, and we don't know if that's true, but that's a working hypothesis that could be. But we do know that they get their eyes redder and redder with age. So a goshawk will have a dark head, and they'll kind of have a white stripe. Depending on the individual, that could be really distinct or not so much, and then the rest of the face can be kind of dark. Cooper's hawks, if you look at a Cooper's hawk, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this on this video. I'm going to try doing a black and white. So what I want you to see is Cooper's hawks in color, they are, as adults, they're red-chested. They have these bars, and they have kind of like a nice little cap, and they have like a black top. But if you make the image black and white, you will see the barring is the same as on a North American goshawk. The patterning and the barring is the same. They're just colored. Well, it turns out, I've talked about this specifically in other videos, genetic studies have shown and indicated that Cooper's hawks evolved from ancestral goshawks. That before goshawks made it into the New World properly, Cooper's hawks did first, or what became Cooper's hawks. And they did their thing, and then goshawks came in later on, and now there was that competition. Part of this is indicated by the fact that goshawks and Cooper's hawks will interbreed. It happens with some frequency. Bird banding stations will often show trapped birds that are clearly a hybrid between the two, but you don't see this happening necessarily with sharp-shinned hawks and Cooper's hawks, or sharp-shinned hawks and goshawks. Because sharp-shinned hawks are the next size down. You've got a goshawk, you got a Cooper's hawk, you got a sharp-shinned hawk. Sharp-shinned hawks came from the sparrowhawk lineage. And so even though they're related, they're not as closely related. So even though coloration-wise, a Cooper's hawk and a sharp-shinned hawk, as adults, look very similar, it's not because of genetics. It's just because of the habitat and whatever else that happen around them. It's just that you have similarities. It's called convergent evolution, where not closely related species who have a similar way of life get shaped by that way of life to end up having similar physical attributes. So knowing that, it is kind of interesting. Don't view a Cooper's hawk as being a big sharp-shinned hawk. View it as a small, colorful insane goshawk, and then you will understand them far better. So let's go now. So we talked a little bit about these two species, but I want to talk about them one-on-one. Goshawks, goshawks are the hawk. If you read texts from the past and they're talking about, going out hunting with a hawk, that is the hawk. Sometimes people use hawk and falcon interchangeably. Like, I'll go out fly my falcon and say, I'm going hawking. Hawking is a verb that I use to be like, I'm going hunting with my bird. I'll take my eagle out hawking. Well, it's an eagle. Aren't you eagling? No. But that's just casual semantics of words. But that's okay. So going hawking with a hawk, the traditional hawk all around the world, a goshawk is the perfect bird. Now, I don't mean perfect in personality. I mean perfect in what it does for you. And now I know you Harris hawkers are like, whoa. We'll get to Harris hawks in a minute. So a goshawk, in the old days, falconry came originally about as a way to get food. Now, there are instances, there are things, for example, in Alaska at an archaeological site, there were some very well-fed, very happy dead gyrfalcons found that dated back like 9,000 years that were kept. And it's like, well, unless you're eating them, and they weren't butchered, they were buried with reverence. So unless you're eating them, why are you keeping these? And there were signs that there were restraints on the legs. Now, that can be for a spiritual reason. It can be for falconry, but you can keep a bird for a spiritual reason. We know ancient Egypt did that as well. Ancient Egypt kept lanner falcons in mass at certain temples to honor the god Horus, which I've talked about at length in many other videos. By the way, that's not the way the Egyptians said the name Horus. It's not Horus, it's Hor, H-O-R. The Greeks added the us on the end. But if you say, the Egyptian god Hor, that sounds like you're saying something else. So, fine, Horus. But the Egyptian god Horus, to honor him at temples, temple attendees would keep lanner falcons. They didn't fly them that we have any record of, but they would keep them and feed them and take care of them. And when they died, or maybe as a ritual sacrifice, or maybe they died naturally, but then they were buried, mummified, and made as offerings to the god Horus. So we know people kept animals and kept birds of prey in different countries for spiritual reasons. We do know that a lot of Puebloan tribes here in North America would keep eagles, young eagles and young frugivorous hawks tied up on top of the Pueblo. And that was a way, it was a spiritual thing, and they provide feathers. It's kind of a blessing over the whole village. There's various reasons for that, but we don't necessarily know that anybody ever practiced falconry. So normally, the general idea, the general consensus is whoever was practicing falconry in the world, actual falconry, going out, taking your bird out and hunting, they were doing it to get food. So there had to be a good reason for it, because food is hard to obtain, especially protein. Protein is very valuable, especially in the winter months, which today is when we mostly practice falconry, is in the colder weather months. Not everywhere in the world, but in the northern hemisphere, that's what we do, because that's when the birds have molted. They have, sorry, getting over a cold. They have a full new set of feathers, and they're able to hunt well. So it makes sense. But a goshawk is the perfect bird for getting food. Not just getting any food, but getting food that is of worth to a human and doing it all day long. If you train a goshawk, they're not just a one-hit wonder. You train a goshawk, you'll go out hunting, boom, we caught a rabbit. Okay, boom, we caught another rabbit. Okay, keep going, boom, we got another. He can hunt literally all day long, and they'll just, Not all birds are like that. Most of the red-tailed hawks I have flown, not all of them, and again, I know people who push them further and do greater things with them than I have, but normally my red-tailed hawks, it's like, they'll do a really great, and once they catch a rabbit, they're like, okay, I'm done, I've done it, I've worked hard, I've caught a jackrabbit, let me do my thing, and let me crop up and go home. They don't really want to hunt after that. They're like, hey, I worked hard for this. Goshawks are not like that. They never tire out. If you have them with the right weight, and you've built their stamina, they're just going to keep going all day long. And they're hunting prey that is a very usable size. Now, they can hunt little stuff. A goshawk can hunt things, as small as starlings and sparrows. Absolutely. They can hunt quail. Sure thing. They can catch it just fine. But they can catch big to even huge prey. They, ducks, geese. I've hunted geese with my goshawks. You got to rush in fast and help them. but, to subdue the goose, because geese are like, and they're crazy, and they'll go, a bunch of geese will come back and might attack your goshawk. So you got to be careful with that, and you always got to be wise about it. But they'll go after geese, they'll go after hares, and cottontail rabbits, and a lot of birds. They can catch pheasants. I already mentioned ducks, but partridge, any bird, and we don't do this here, but like crows or ravens, rooks, things like that in other countries go after that. They're very capable hunters, and they're hunting food that is very usable and easy to transfer to use for human use. So, for example, if you go hunting a deer, there's a lot of meat on that, but that's a lot of butchering time. You're going to be spending all day butchering that thing, and people are helping you, and there's a big payoff, but it's a lot of work. Now, same thing. Even if you're doing something domesticated, like if you're grazing pigs, and if you're gonna slaughter a pig, or you're gonna butcher up a cow, that is a huge job. That's a ton of work, back-breaking work, which has a big payoff. But again, the nice thing about a goshawk is you're like, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go out and go catch something. Boom, got it. Okay, let's go cook it up. And that is why in Europe in medieval times, the goshawk was called the cook's bird, because if you were like an innkeeper, you have your little inn, and your patrons or your visitors there, your guests, they're waking up in the morning, and you might have somebody, maybe your wife's gonna make them up some, whatever, pancakes, I don't know, whatever they're eating back then in medieval times, and you go out, you take your goshawk out, you go catch a couple of ducks, or you go catch a rabbit. Then you bring it back, you butcher it up, and you put it in, cut it up for a stew for dinner. So all the guests will have a good, hearty meal for dinner. So it's called the cook's bird because they were that reliable. It was not about it was not about recreation. It's a very practical bird. So they hunt and hunt and hunt, and they make it look easy. I implore you to go online and look up videos of goshawks flying through narrow objects. Goshawks flying through forests, goshawks flying through tubes. There's a lot of people who've done this in slow motion. They'll take a trained goshawk and they'll put up barriers, and it's amazing how without even skipping a beat, without slowing down, they'll go through things that narrow. They'll just tuck up, put their feet through, and they shoot right through. They make it look easy, and that makes them a good choice for a falconry bird. If you're going to go hunt, a goshawk is an incredible choice. Now, that being said, there's a big difference between the North American goshawks and all the old world goshawks. Whatever you're going to say, from the Siberian goshawk, the white ones, the Eastern Siberians, to the Finnish, to standard European goshawks. And I will say, all accipiters are kind of a little crazy. They're a little, and they process information, visual information, faster than any other raptor. Their response time is faster than any other raptor. They're living in a different speed. It's almost like, I'm not into superheroes, but like the Flash, or, there's some of those, superheroes where the Flash is running and everybody else is just like not moving. It's almost what it's like for a goshawk or a Cooper's hawk. And you got to factor that in. They seem very agitated and high-strung all the time. Now, goshawks, if you're going to fly one, especially if it's your first bird, I recommend an old world goshawk of any kind over a new world goss. Because I like the New World gosses better. I like the American goss. I like the finer chest, and I liked them more, the blood red eyes. They seemed a little angrier looking. I really liked them. And but then once I started flying old world goshawks, I'm like, oh geez, this is so much easier. The stress level is down. It is still an intense, high effort bird, but whatever you put into a goshawk, you will get back. The more time you put in with them and hunt with them and work with them, the more that it's tit for tat. It's directly. You put in this, you're gonna get this back. But the bad thing is, you can't just kind of put them on the sideline. You can't be like, I'm just gonna go fly, once a week or something. You have to be out there hunting that bird constantly. That's a bad thing. So good and bad at the same time. They hold, all accipiters hold grudges. If you make a mistake, they will let you know. And they don't forgive easily. So you have to be very cautious with any accipiter, with what you do with that. When you're feeding them, remember, food is the language of social bonding. So remember, in nature, if you're a bird of prey, if you're a raptor, everybody wants to kill you and take your food or kill you and make you food, except for your parent and your mate, and your parent will once they leave the nest. So only your mate. So you sharing food in any way is a social bonding tactic. This is very good and this is very bad, because with all raptors, especially accipiters, the babies start to become very aggressive in the nest. And at that age, the mother goshawk or the mother Cooper's hawk will take an injured bird or just catch a bird and fly up near the nest, and the babies start going and chasing after, and the mom goes through the forest and drops the injured bird, and they go down and they catch it. They teach their young how to hunt. They teach this cause and effect. You have to chase and actually bind to something. But then, after a few weeks of that, the parents leave, and the babies are like, and all the last few weeks they've had, all aggression has been directed towards killing a bird. The bird has gotten them food, and so then they start looking for birds out there to hunt. If you raise a goshawk or a Cooper's hawk from a baby, you're the parent, and you never leave. And I'll get to that in the end about what to do about that. But very cautious thought has to be put into what age you acquire a goshawk or a Cooper's hawk at. So in both cases, if you do it wrong, you're going to have a face-grabbing bird that's going to be attacking you. And if you have a bird that's attacking you, you have to reevaluate where you are associating food with, and you have to change that to something else. But this isn't about that. You can go look through my videos on coping with aggression and aggressive accipiters and what to do about that. But that is just a factor. So I do not consider a goshawk a beginner's bird. However, I've had apprentices who have flown a goshawk for their first bird and done great, but they were apprentices who were 100% committed, had the time, had the money, had the drive to do it, and they did wonders with it. So you absolutely can do that with a goshawk. So again, goshawks are the best hunter. And again, what's the best hunter, right? If I want to go catch grasshoppers, maybe a hobby falcon is the best, right? But what I'm saying is, for getting food, for having hunting success and getting food, goshawks make it look easy. Get an old world goshawk over a new world goshawk if you can. If you haven't done goshawks before, do an old world if you can. And if you get a new world goshawk, again, the best age from the wild is like a brancher age. So if you get them at that age where parents have raised them, where they're starting to hop around the nest and the parents are in the process of having them leave, that's the best age to get them. To have them not be vocal and to have them, be trained up properly. Goshawks can become very, very vocal, maddeningly so, if they are imprinted incorrectly. And if they're a food imprint, then they're nonstop. It'll drive you crazy. Cooper's hawks are the same way. So this is a factor. But I've been talking so much about goshawks, we've got to talk about Cooper's hawks. Goshawks are amazing birds. If you do them right, if you pay attention to them right, and train them right, and manage the aggression right, they're incredible. And they're one of my favorite birds to fly. My favorite bird to fly is a Cooper's hawk. And the reason I don't have a Cooper's hawk right now is because I have more than one bird. Now, you'll normally say you're going to have the most success in falconry if you only have one bird and dedicate all your time to that. That's true. That is true. But I have ADD, and I want to do as much as I can in this short life, and I want to experience all I can. So we all have to stretch, right? You all have to work. Maybe you're retired, but still, you can only dedicate so much time to this. A Cooper's hawk, really, you have to have it be your only bird. Cooper's hawks are so intense. If you get a Cooper's hawk, find a buddy who either has had one or currently has one, so you can troubleshoot with each other. Because you are never going to arrive at properly training your Cooper's hawk. It's back and forth. You old world falconers, you see them and you probably think, oh, it's kind of like a sparrowhawk. Nope, not at all. A sharp-shinned hawk, which is much smaller, would be more comparable to the attitude and mentality and agreeableness of a sparrowhawk. Cooper's hawks are nuts. They are so intense. They are so fast and so agile, and they've built such a cool niche. They're lightning fast, lightning agile, and they're built like a goshawk in miniature. And again, they turn red as an adult, but once you know that genetically they came from the same line as goshawks, you can't unsee it. Look at the face, look at the move, look how it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I see it. Cooper's hawks, they can punch up, they can punch down. They can go after little prey like sparrows, and you can hunt sparrows all day long and have a great old time with a Cooper's hawk. And you can hunt larger prey. Quail is about perfect. Quail and pigeons are about the perfect size for a Cooper's hawk. But you can punch up. I know a falconer in California who will fly his Cooper's hawk on birds and cottontails, and then the last week or two of the hunt, he will let his bird, because the bird always tries to go after jackrabbits, but he'll be like, no, wait, don't, and the bird's like baiting, like, come on, let me go after it, and like, fine, I'll let him, and he lets him catch jackrabbits, and he rushes up and helps dispatch the jackrabbit, but some of the tail feathers are going to get broken in the process, but it's like, hey, the bird's about to be put up for the molt, it's going to be growing new feathers, so it's okay, let him have fun, let him catch some jackrabbits. But jackrabbits are too big to be overpowered by a Cooper's hawk. They can catch them. They can catch anything. They can catch a bus. They can catch a race car. They're chasing after things. But you got to rush in there and help them too. All accipiters have comparatively breakable feathers. I don't know why, but they have very brittle tail feathers. And it's advisable with both goshawks and Cooper's hawks to do some sort of tail guard. I should probably do a video on tail guards. They've been around since ancient times. People have come up with different versions of it. The easiest thing is kind of like a hair clip, just a little kind of bend old hair clip things. You can put that at the base of the tail when you're traveling, and then when you get out in the field, take it off, and then once they catch something, you go over on the kill and just do that. You can go online, you can buy big old fancy tail guards of all different kinds, but the main thing is, once one of those tail feathers break, they all start to break, because they all support each other. I don't know why. Accipiters, when you watch them in slow motion, their feathers are like, they're like Play-Doh. They just are bouncing all over the place. They seem really flexible, and they technically are. They're flexible while simultaneously being brittle. I don't know why, but this is always a consideration with goshawks and Cooper's hawks. So, if you ever find a gos or Cooper's hawk feather out in the field lying around, grab it and keep it on hand so you can use it if you ever need to imp and repair a broken feather. It's also a wise idea to have that lined up. Now, you can imp a bird with other feathers, and I kind of have a thing that I do with both my Cooper's hawks and my goshawks. If they break a feather, I typically replace it with a Harris hawk feather, because Harris hawks are proportioned very similar to a goshawk, but they have feathers you can just bend all the way around. The most ridiculously flexible, bendable feathers on earth. They're great, and so they're not as fast as a goshawk, but they're super agreeable. So like I said, so if you have a Cooper's hawk, Harris hawk tail is too big. So if you have a Cooper's hawk and breaks a tail feather, you can replace it with a tail feather from a Cooper's hawk. Go to my videos on imping. I've got videos on imping you can look up. But if not, you can trim with some sharp scissors and trim and shape that feather until it matches the feather you're replacing. So you can still use a bigger Harris hawk feather and trim it down to be usable for a Cooper's hawk. So both the birds are very high strung. Both of the birds have huge payout. If you're given the choice between the two, do a goshawk over a Cooper's hawk. And if you're given the choice between an old world and a new world goshawk, do the old world goshawk. I consider Cooper's hawks to be the most difficult bird to train properly. Now, what do I mean by properly? I mean like they're well behaved, they're not attacking you, they're you got their weight management dialed in, they're agreeable to be around. Cooper's hawks are wonderful. And again, the best age to get a Cooper's hawk is right when the parents are in the process of leaving. So if you are thinking of getting a Cooper's hawk, find a nest and keep tabs on it every single day. Go to that nest, check on it, and make sure. And when you see the babies are getting ready to leave and the parents are starting not to bring food as quickly, that's when you want to get a baby. And that is the way to do it. And then you can have a very agreeable bird that's pleasant to work with, but still a good hunter. If you get a passage Cooper's hawk, meaning it's left the parents, you can still train them, but they're always going to have an edge, and they're always going to be spooky. And the later you get, the more issues they're going to have. And if you get them younger than that, you can make them into exactly what you want, but you're still going to have vocalization issues and you're still going to have aggression issues. So a Cooper's hawk should be the perfect bird. They really should. It should be the bird that everybody and their dog has because they're common. They're everywhere. You can find Cooper's hawks nesting in city parks. You can find them in neighborhoods just nesting. I mean, there's one that comes to my backyard almost every day, just passing through and just sits up in my big old huge tree and just looks around and then goes out and chases dogs and stuff and just does his thing. Cooper's hawks are everywhere. They're accessible and they're easy to train, but they're not easy to train correctly. You know, you can train them to sit on the fist, you can train them to fly the fist, you can train them to hunt easily, but you might have raging aggression issues and raging vocalization issues that are going to drive you and your neighbors crazy. So again, the best age to do a Cooper's hawk, get them right at that age when they're leaving the parents. Do that and pay attention and you're going to do okay. Goshawks, you can train a goshawk any age. But again, same thing. If you have the opportunity to get a goshawk at that age, right when they're leaving their parents, the parents have done all the work and the aggression towards the parents that's starting to form, you're a new species. You're like, oh, what's this? And so you can cut that. You can stop them from being vocal and you can stop them from being aggressive towards you just by getting them at the right age. Goshawks, I've had my best goshawks, and I really want to get a goshawk this year. I very much want to get, and ideally, what I would love to do, it's my favorite thing, is to get an older goshawk, which sounds strange. That's not the case. If you get an older falcon, you get a falcon that's been in a breeding program as a breeder, and then you take it out and try to work with it, they're a pain to work with. Same thing, you get a red tail out of a situation that, if it was an education bird, you're going to use it for falconry, and there's issues. Eagles aren't that way. You can always get an eagle up and running, Aquila eagles, like golden eagles, wedge-tailed eagles, Varro's eagles, things like that. I'm not talking about bald eagles. They're not even eagles. Bald eagles are sea eagles. They're not true eagles. But there's no goshawk that can't be, if a goshawk has been flown properly for at least a season, and then it hasn't been, or maybe it's been a breeder for a while, they kind of mellow out. And they're like, oh, how you doing? What's going on? And that leaves them. It's still in there, but it's toned down. It's manageable. Same thing even with North American goshawks. If you have a goshawk that's 2, 3, 4 years old, they're calmer and they're easier to work with. So that's actually the best age to get a goshawk, is a hand-me-down goshawk. But again, watch my videos on managing aggression. I've got videos on it. Look it up because that is key. Any accipiter with any ounce of aggression, it might leave the kill and climb its way up to your face. It's not good. So know what you're doing before you get one. Don't just be like, hey, there's a Cooper's hawk in my backyard. Yeah, I'm going to pull a Cooper's hawk. No, you research the heck out of your Cooper's hawk or your goshawk before you get one. Read everything you can, watch every video you can, get every perspective you can, and find another falconer, especially if you're doing a Cooper's hawk. Find another falconer that you can talk to, even daily, who has or currently has a Cooper's hawk. So you got to bounce off with them because you never arrive. You never arrive at a fully trained Cooper's hawk. It's up and down and back and forth, and it's like driving a vehicle with a lot of play in the wheel. You're like driving the road, or no, I am driving in the road, but this is how I'm driving, okay? That's what you got to do with the Cooper's hawk. Goshawks, you can arrive. You can dial in a goss and you can get them. Goshawks are the perfect bird. But again, there's a lot of drawbacks to both these birds, from breakable feathers to potential for aggression, and so enter the Harris hawk. Harris hawks are the newest addition to falconry. Falconry's been around for thousands of years. Harris hawks haven't even been used for 100 years. But they're great because they're pretty close to the flight abilities of a goshawk. They're not quite there, but they're pretty close. They can hunt in a pack. You can train them to hunt in a pack. They're super agreeable. You can cuddle them. You can hold them barehanded. They're very gentle. They're very easy to work with. They can be aggressive, but nothing like... the aggression is properly channeled. You get them dialed in, properly channeled. So, why I bring this up, I'm a huge advocate. I love goshawks. I love goshawks, and I love Cooper's hawks too. Again, if I was only flying one bird, it would always be a Cooper's hawk. That would always be my choice. If you want a bird that you can kind of just phone it in, Cooper's Hawk's not the bird for you. If you are the type of person, like if you're, okay, like I go fishing, okay? And I play it easy. I use the most basic bait, and I'll just use like a worm on a hook and just go and enjoy and just, hit a spot and just, in these little rivers around here. But there's fly fishermen. They're like, okay, no, I gotta hyper focus on this. I gotta have a little scoop to test what's coming down the river every 5 minutes to see what the sediment's like, what bugs are coming down river, and I got this and that, and do this kind of fly and this, and I gotta adjust. That's what doing Cooper's Hawk is. You've got to constantly be adjusting, tweaking your approach, and fine-tuning, and you'll have success. So if that appeals to you, that incredible, intense, hyper-focusing on a species and your relationship and how you hunt, Cooper's Hawk is a great bird for those of us with that kind of a mind. If you want a bird that's really capable and you're going to have a lot of success hunting, but you don't want the drama, get a Harris hawk. So again, if you are considering either of these birds, also look into the possibility of getting a Harris hawk. That being said, the drawbacks of Harris hawks, they cannot handle the extreme cold. If you look at my videos on making owl jesses, I put these jesses on Harris hawks in the winter. It's an anklet that is fur lined, so it's leather, but it's got fur inside and out too. Look it up on my channel. The owl jesses works for Cooper's hawks. Helps keep them warmer. It works good. They can be vocal. Harris hawks are social birds with each other. They, where are you? Because they hunt as a pack. And so if you get a bird that starts being vocal, that can be bad. I'm really lucky right now. I have a wonderful Harris hawk that was trained right and wasn't around other Harris hawks, and it's his name is Sundance, and he is quiet. He is delightfully quiet. But Harris hawks can pick it up from other Harris hawks too. Maybe that doesn't bother you, but any bird can become vocal. Years ago, I got this Goshawk. It was a hand-me-down for somebody else, and it was meow, meow, meow. And it got every single bird. I had so many birds back then. It got all of them talking. It got my eagle doing baby calls. This wasn't an imprint eagle, and my eagle was doing baby calls. My owl, it's like, you're not at all related to a goshawk owl, and this owl started doing hoots and food bags and chitters and stuff. This darn bird got every bird on my property vocalizing and food bagging. So you can have that with any bird. But that aside, if you're getting into falconry and you are like, oh, I want a goshawk, oh, I want a Cooper's hawk, and you haven't done a lot of falconry yet, look into a Harris hawk first. It's a good entry bird. I mean, you can fly them for your whole career and do them, but it's a good alternative if you want most of the abilities of the goshawk without the intensity and the risk of aggression. But that being said, these are the two most capable birds. Again, both of them can basically hunt most of the same prey. But Cooper's hawks, you're looking at anything from a sparrow, up to a duck, but really up to like a hen pheasant, a partridge, that's a pigeon. That's kind of the normal range of a Cooper's hawk. And a goshawk, anything from a sparrow up to like I said, I've gone full-size Canadian geese with my Finnish goshawk. So it's pretty cool. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about these. I know it's kind of all over the place, kind of scattershot, but it's just fun to talk about these species because they're such beautiful and amazing species. We'll see. Hopefully, I'll be able to track down a goss this year, whether from the wild or if I get an old world one. I would love to share that with you. If you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe to my channel, let me know down below in the comments what your thoughts are, what your experience has been with goshawks and Cooper's hawks. And if you want to support me on Patreon, in my channel description, there's a link to that as well. And, but yeah, goshawks and Cooper's hawks forever, man. They are incredible, incredible birds. And as always, happy hawking.